please. First order of business is to approve the minutes. It is.
So ordered. Wally Kadeem, so moved.
Wait. We have an amendment that was
A point of personal
suggested.
privilege, Madam Chairman. Do we have a quorum?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I didn't see Beth.
Yes. It was suggested by the attorney that the motion we made on May 23rd about the single-family in-law apartments need to be clarified and to say make homes with single-family apartments. So before, Wally did say you approve
Yes,
these minutes.
I did.
Okay.
And Tina seconded.
And I need to call for an amendment.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to accept the amendment.
Second.
All those.
Yeah.
Anybody want to have a discussion about it?
Yeah, I do.
Yes.
Why isn't this on the agenda?
This is part of our approval of our minutes.
Oh, got it. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Minutes approval, and the
Got it.
minutes were amended with just those two words, homes with. Yeah. Is there any other discussion about that amendment?
I'm sorry, can you, please say
I'll
what
give you page 3. Page 3 of the
Can you repeat the
WPCA.
amendment, please, Mitzi? For me?
It would read as follows. Motion was made by Ms. Manis, seconded by Mr. Dumas, to make single-family in-law apartments one sewer use for FY 16-17. The amendment says make homes with single-family in-law apartments.
Yes.
It's the home with the in-law. Okay, that was suggested as a clarification by legal.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. We have, Mr. Stallings could not make tonight's meeting, but we do have some report from Mr. Casey.
The polyaluminum chloride project is proceeding on schedule, and we anticipate the project being completed this fall. The inflow and infiltration capacity study, the I&I study, we had a proposal from the engineer, Ty and Bond, to amend their contract to proceed with the next part of the study, which is taking the data that we collected during the spring and actually perform the study, analyze the data, and create sewer models and present a report.
Did you get enough rain?
Pardon me?
Did you get enough rain?
Well, we got two storms that were not what we hoped for, but there's something, I think. But we won't know until they actually go through the data and look at it. But I should say that I just read that the state put out some kind of drought warning today. So they say we're 6 inches under capacity for the last 90 days. So we didn't get the rainy spring we hoped for, but we did get 2 storms, so hopefully that's enough. So their contract amendment is for an amount not to exceed $276,098. And this was approved by the Connecticut DEP in advance of our applying for the Clean Water Fund grant loan program to fund the project.
How much would the Clean Water Fund refund? What percentage, John?
55%.
55? Okay.
So I don't know if you want to
Madam Chairman,
act on that.
I'd like to make
Yeah.
a motion to approve Amendment 1 in the amount not to exceed $276,098 to T and bond for the next part of the I&I project.
Second.
Is there any discussion about the approval?
In terms of the 55%, we'll be receiving that back from the state. We won't have to put up the whole 250 without being reimbursed for the other 55% of that, which is roughly like 130, 140, correct?
We expend and then we seek reimbursement, so we can get reimbursed, 2 months after we expend.
Okay, so we'll be able to get back, 130, 140 from the 250?
Yeah, I don't know what the math is, but
Just giving you a break. Half
More than
of it,
half.
of course, is 125, so
Yeah.
another 5% would probably be like 130, 133, 137, something like that. All right, just making sure. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the approval of $276,098 of tie and bond for the I&I project phase? Any other? All right, now vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passed. We're actually almost finished with the meeting, but John, did you want to bring up, we interviewed but did not have a quorum, 2 companies. Let's see, Ms. Manis was there,
it's on my report, I think.
Mr. Chase, I was there, and Alan Llewellyn, plus Mr. Casey and Mr. Stallings, to interview the 2 companies. So it was Municipal Financial Services and Reftelis Financial Consultants. And if you wanted to comment on that, John?
John, I'm sorry to interrupt. Madam Chairman,
Yes.
I'm mystified by something. You said that we didn't have a quorum. I also thought at that you made the determination that the 4 people who sat in and listened to the interviews would be, in effect, a subcommittee
Yes.
reporting back to the full committee.
Yes,
Okay.
we are. Yes.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I look forward to getting that subcommittee's report, and I assume that there was a matrix to rate the 2 different firms.
Yes, the ratings were done, but we haven't discussed the ratings.
Okay.
You
Madam
would
Chair.
be welcome to.
One sec. The evaluations that were completed were done individually, not together, and then sealed and given to Mr. Casey
Right.
Okay.
for tabulation.
Except for Mr. Llewellyn, who's on vacation. He didn't send his in, I understand.
That's correct.
Yes. All right, so we will have a further report when the subcommittee meets, and it will be the 4 of us meeting with Mr. Casey and Mr. Stallings. Ms. Manis?
So, Mr. Casey, you're tabulating all the scores, correct?
Yes.
When we meet as a subcommittee, will we have a final score? And then we'll be able to make decisions from then? Or do we have to can you reach out and figure out prices as we discussed at the meeting?
No, first we would select a preferred consultant, and then we would ask for
So
fee
if,
proposal.
so if Mr. Llewellyn gets his sheets to you before the subcommittee meets, is what I'm asking,
Yes.
is then you can come to the subcommittee meeting with a price, rather than say, okay, yay, this is who it is, and then we go out again, so it could save some time? Is that possible?
If the authority wants that to happen, I think then we can ask for that. I don't want to ask any consultant for any information until you've decided who you want to negotiate with.
Yeah.
So I think it might be.
Stick some pins in Alan.
The thing is, Alan hasn't given his
the
report,
way.
his rating, for one thing. So I would prefer to wait till he hands that in, and then we will meet, the 6 of us, anybody else that wants to come and listen to us, and go over the points, discuss it, and then make a choice.
Absolutely, but I think that the rating score matrix has to be submitted first and sealed, and then Mr. Casey would go reach out to the consultant that's chosen and come back with a price, so that at that meeting, one of the points that we look at is price point, because that was a concern that was brought up at the meeting, to know what the price point was, but we can't get the price point until we know who the chosen candidate is.
I understand that. However, do you think that you would make a choice if you knew what both companies... See, we're going to choose one company.
Right, but if the price point comes back too high, we were given an approximate value by Mr. Stallings and Mr. Casey of roughly around, can I say that? It was roughly around...
I don't think I weighed in on that, so
Okay, I think
feel
it's
free.
Mr. Stallings. It was like, oh, well, roughly around this number. So we kind of have an idea, and if we're looking at places around, if we come back with a consultant that is much too high, then we know where the average lies, so we need to then investigate other choices, as Mr. Chase said at that meeting, or at that event, whatever you want to call it, those interviews. We want to look at the next candidate, so I don't want to spend too much time, oh, yay, okay, you're the winner. Oh, wow, that much money? What's the next guy say? That's part of it. Because we don't go for grant funding for this, and because we're not bound to any of those rules with WBE or any of the, grant funding stuff like we usually are, even though they were part of the questionnaire, they're not necessarily things we're bound to. So we're not bound to choose anybody like we were with the II.
Yeah, I understand your point. So very well taken. Do you have a comment on that?
No, I'm fine.
You're fine with it?
I have a question.
Yes.
Can you explain, or perhaps this is for the finance director, exactly what the process is in terms of balancing quality and cost? Is there a point system for that, or how is that done in the town?
Well, we started this process off on a qualification-based selection process, which would negate consideration of price in the selection of the candidate. We would then, select a preferred consultant and then negotiate with that consultant. If we didn't agree or couldn't agree with a negotiated fee and scope of work, we could then move on to the next rated consultant.
Okay, so quality is chosen first, and then if they are within that price range, then if that doesn't work out, then you go down to the next.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Fine.
So, Mr.
Seems like a
Casey,
good way.
my understanding is this now, that you will, once you get Alan's ratings, you will make a choice dependent entirely on what the ratings were before we have a discussion, so that you can come in with
I'm not
dollar?
I'm not making the choice. I'm going to tabulate the numbers, and
Yes,
I'm going to
the
advise
number.
you what those numbers are, and then if you want to meet and discuss them, that would be your prerogative. If you felt that you had sufficient support of the numbers that you wanted to ask me to then proceed with the highest rated vendor to get a scope and fee, then I could do that. But first, let's get the numbers, then you can decide, what the next step would be.
I'd like the scope,
Ms. Mattis?
I'd like the scope and fee to be part of the next committee meeting, because I think that is going to be a major deciding factor. If we have the scoring done by Mr. Like if we had the scoring today, I would say, okay, who's the chosen candidate? Let's get their number. And then when we meet as a committee to discuss that and then move from there. Because we all saw them. We know what they were about. And otherwise it's going to blur the process, and it's going to start to make us change our numbers and question our calibrations. We'll become calibrated with each other is what will happen. And then it'll change all of those calculations that were done. We'll start to second guess ourselves.
I kind of agree with that, too. Yes.
I'm not on the committee, but, as far as moving things along, Councilwoman Manis makes a good point. So I pray that you guys come to that conclusion so that we can move it along to get it done faster.
Yeah, I think that's the way we're going.
Amen. Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Can I just suggest in terms of process that perhaps that next stage can be done with all of us as a group, since there are only a few more of us anyway, and just that will save everybody, I think, one meeting.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch
You could bring the scoring to the whole WPCA committee here, and that will save the subcommittee one meeting. So once you have the scoring done, you can bring it to the whole committee here, rather than doing having a special subcommittee meeting.
I understand what you're saying, but I think the fact that we had an hour interview with each company and we have certain ideas as to what we saw and heard kind of precludes including people that weren't there.
Right, but ultimately, it's this whole committee that has to vote on it. I was just trying to save you a meeting, Ms. Anteza.
Yeah, the only disadvantage of that is we'd have to wait till next month to do that. And then if we had a subcommittee meeting in the meantime, we could do that a little quicker.
Right.
Right, but the subcommittee cannot decide, cannot actually decide. It's making a recommendation to this whole committee, right?
They did with I&I.
Madam Chair, if I may, the subcommittee will make the recommendation, and as Mr. Chase stated and Mr. Llewellyn with regards to Stratford High Subcommittee, having the numbers will help us to make the best recommendation. If we come before this group and just say whoever's the top winner wins, whoever's got the best number wins, then we're making a recommendation just on the fly, and we may not want that person. We may say cost versus quality isn't worth it. We may change our mind. We may want to go to the next candidate and ask them what their price is, because we have the ability to do that. We can shop around because we're not held by grant money.
Right. I think our approach is going to be to have a subcommittee meeting with Mr. Stallings and Mr.
Fine.
Casey and report back to you, definitely, with everything that we learned.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
If I may, when Mr. Llewellyn is actually, he's landed. He landed at 7 o'clock. At 7 o'clock. Possibly you could reach out to him and ask him to get that to Mr. Casey right away, and possibly we could have a subcommittee meeting
Within a week,
within the next week, yeah.
I would say so.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
So just to wrap up a little bit, it might be a good idea, I just want to make sure it's on the record, who's on the subcommittee? And then,
Ms. Manis, Mr. Chase, Mr. Llewellyn, and I.
and then just want to confirm, am I going to tabulate the numbers and email them out to you, or do you want to have a meeting on the numbers first to make a decision on who we would solicit a proposal from?
I think there's agreement, we should just email them to us.
Okay. I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear you. Could you use your mic? Vin, would you use your mic? What did you say?
What did I say? Oh, I'm sorry, Mitzi. I think we all agree that the numbers can be emailed to us. That way we'd have them beforehand, and we could have our subcommittee meeting to make a determination.
Good.
Prices too, or just the numbers?
Just the numbers to confirm the selected consultant,
Right, like last time.
Okay.
and then once we're in agreement, we can solicit a
Okay.
fee proposal.
Yeah, if I would tend to think that if we, whoever we select, we bring them in there, the subcommittee should be asking the questions on cost, and we should be involved in the negotiation to get that price lower if necessary.
Okay. Is that sufficient direction?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Do you have any other further reports?
I can run through my memo just to complete my report. We did our condition assessment, the videotaping of the sewers. We've given that package to Ty and Bond so they can use it when they're starting the study phase of the project. We have some money left over in the original purchase order, so we'll be doing a second round to finish up the purchase order. The Pecksville Pond wet well safety improvement project is underway, and that was scheduled for bid in October. The 6 pump station rehab project, we had a subcommittee on that, and we're ready to issue our RFQ for that, and we'll go through the same QBS process. But we haven't advertised it yet, so I just wanted to let you know I will be advertising that shortly so that we can be bringing that back to you for interviews again for that consultant. The River Valley Road Sewer Extension Project was a project that you approved earlier this year. After your approval, we got a letter from one of the owners that said they didn't want it. And then the original owner that had requested it had sold the house, and the new owners don't want it. And so I would ask you to cancel the project, and I'll send letters to the 4 owners saying that we're not going to proceed with the project.
I'd like to...
Excuse me, Chair. Through the Chair, of course. Did we speak about this a little bit about if it's a necessary thing that we need to do for our town, we can circumvent them if we need to and use an eminent domain? Is that yes or no?
Well, this isn't an eminent domain situation, but it is, if there was a health code issue that we wanted to make sure was addressed, we could do the project and assess the owners the cost.
Yeah,
and we decided to do that. But that was when we thought we had people that wanted it. And since then, we have no one that wants it. And I'm not aware of any emergency health issues.
Just referring to the lawyers, this is a project that we've been speaking about for a little while now, and it needed to be done based upon the runoff, correct? We're talking about the same thing.
No, this is sanitary sewer is really about septic systems, and the people wasn't something that we were saying is needed. It was something that was requested from the residents,
and we were going to change that.
And we were going to add the sewer based
out
on their request. But now that their request basically has been rescinded.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to cancel that project.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I just want to be clear. I don't have your report from the last meeting, John. We're talking about the River Valley Road project?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
No more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? If there's no further business, John, if you got any more?
Well, just wrap up. Just want to let you know we are starting a new permit system, which will include our sanitary sewer permits, building permits, health department permits, zoning permits. But for you, it's the sanitary sewer permits. We're going to have a new online system. It should be starting August 1st. So if you get any calls from constituents on sewer permits, that's what we're attempting to do is have a different type of application procedure and approval procedure. And that approval procedure might be something as we go into it, we might want to get more information from you or draft up, certain procedural policies that Alex and I had kind of talked about a couple months ago.
I was going to ask you if you're going to have procedures and if you could pass the procedures around to all of us, or see that Carol gets a copy.
Yeah, I can send them out.
And she will distribute them to us.
Yep. And then finally, our coastal resiliency study is nearing the end, and one of the recommended projects is to make the wastewater treatment plant more resilient to coastal flooding. There is a hurricane barrier around the plant. There is a low point in the barrier, which is our most vulnerable area. And then in the meantime, the FEMA has raised the flood elevation for the 100-year storm. And that means that a lot more of our dike is now lower than the 100-year storm. And then in the coastal resiliency study, we were talking about the possibility that future flood elevations might actually be higher. So the recommendation was, because it's a critical facility, that the hurricane dike be raised around the treatment plant. And we're going to have the consultant that did that study perform some preliminary design as part of his contract for the treatment plant, and we'll get back to you on what the recommendations are for a long-term improvement to the coastal resiliency of the treatment plant.
Were there any figures supplied for that? Or
we will have those probably for next meeting.
Okay. If there's No further business?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Town Council. This meeting was simply to discuss and to pass and make any modifications to the enterprise fund accounts. They were the one part of the fiscal year 17 budget that we hadn't quite dealt with. The mayor had proposed, we'll start out with EMS. The mayor had proposed his budget. There were changes, modifications that at one point had been suggested by EMS themselves. They have withdrawn those suggestions. Is that correct? You have withdrawn those suggestions for the modifications to delay the ambulance and to delay the personnel hiring, and now you would like to do that, correct?
We actually I never made any specific recommendations to Mike Louise, Director of EMS for Stratford. Sorry about that. We, at the EMS Funding Committee meeting, we were asked some questions about what we could and couldn't do. At no point did I ever say that we wanted to get rid of an ambulance or get rid of a staff member.
Then there must have been a misunderstanding. I was present there in the tape. I think there must have been a misunderstanding, but the fact is that now you do want to purchase the ambulance this year, and you do want to hire the supervisor.
Yes.
So therefore, no modifications. There are no modifications proposed to the mayor's budget except for the extra $100,000 that was taken out and that went to the town. The mayor had proposed $300,000 in the town transfer. $400,000 was brought in as revenue to the town. So therefore, in the budget modification that you have in front of you, I think, do you have that?
Yeah, it's mine. Well, it's not mine, but hold on.
No.
On the revenue side,
Actually, this resolution is strictly for
EMS.
it's EMS, all EMS, but it's strictly, the top part is the revenue impact on fund balance if payroll was reduced and capital outlay for the ambulance was reduced. Separate from that, since on the town side you approved $400,000 allocation from EMS, that's already been adjusted in their budget for fiscal 17.
okay, so therefore, the proposal is to allow EMS to buy the ambulance this year if they so choose, and to allow them to hire the supervisor if they so choose. Can I have a motion for that?
Madam Chairman, I move.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Discussion?
Madam Chairman? Just a quick question. You received approval for the additional supervisor in the last fiscal year. Did you at all start to recruit for that position?
No, we actually got approval many years ago. We just kept it in the budget, but we weren't able to fill it for various, like WPCA came up and we were told, okay, you need to, not make any, major changes to payroll or anything for the next, until we get this figured out. So that's why it's been on hold.
Okay, so last year was on hold because of the WPCA.
Yeah.
And what was it? And you said it's been on hold for a number of years.
Before that, well, actually, it wasn't technically on hold. We had 2 supervisors. We needed to hire a third based on the union contract memorandum. Around that time is when Administrator Best left. We had Kevin. We hired the 2, but then Kevin went into Donna's position, so now we have the open position. Around that time is when the WPCA thing started, so we haven't been able to fill it.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, Ms. Manis?
Can I ask you to explain what would happen if the supervisor's position had been eliminated as had been proposed earlier in a different meeting? Can you explain what the ramifications, what that would look like?
Yeah, according to the bargaining agreement, if we remove one of these, bargaining unit positions, we have to first lay off a certain amount of per diem staff, which essentially means with our call volume going up that we're not going to be able to cover calls. Because one person is not going to equate to however many, per diem staff we have to get rid of.
Okay, can I just ask, but you hadn't had to lay off staff even though that position has been unfilled for a number of years?
Well, we didn't. In order to remove the position, the position was there. We weren't proposing to remove it.
So maybe that's where the misunderstanding came from. Maybe we thought that you had said, maybe you guys had agreed to not hire this year, not spend that money. And so we interpreted that as removing the position. So, okay, but this year you want to hire, you want to spend the money, so be it. Okay. Is there any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, chair votes aye. Motion passes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 does not pass. No, it's money, right?
Can I say something?
Yes, Ms. Collier.
It was nice that you were trying to pass it, but there's nothing to pass. You're sticking with the mayor's
Okay.
proposed budget, so you really don't need a resolution.
Okay, thank you. The second, how's that for not? Okay, the second issue, and Ms. Collier can perhaps avoid some wasted time, was so we're done with EMS, was in the railroad enterprise.
Okay, you still only have 6.
Yes, I know.
Okay.
We're just asking for clarification. The railroad enterprise fund.
Oh, yes.
The
Railroad Enterprise Fund, because in the general fund, you made the decision at that point to put the parking authority salaries 100% in the railroad fund, that adjustment has already been made to the railroad budget.
Okay, so there's no need to do anything.
Because you made the change on the general fund side, so the offset has to happen. Just like with WPCA, when you made just like in the general fund, when you made certain decisions about sewer usage fees on the general fund side, we put the same number on the WPCA side. So there's no need to take any further votes on enterprise funds unless you have changes that you want to make.
Okay, and since we can't do any, yes, Ms. Mans.
Parking authority, is that now put into Railroad Enterprise Fund?
Yes, that's...
Okay.
It was 50% general fund in the mayor's proposed. During the process of approving the general fund budget, that 50% that was in the general fund was moved to railroad. So now railroad has 2 full-time parking authority people funded in that railroad fund.
If I may, through the chair, if I could ask, oh, he left. I wanted to talk to Mr. Ciccarelli. There's a real concern. I want to know, and I'm put on record so that we can ask this question. Parking authority was seen at Short Beach for an extended amount of time. I'd like to know what the scope of their position is. If they're assigned to railroad, are they supposed to be in and around the railroad facility, or are they assigned all over? Does anybody know that?
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
I think I can answer that. That same question came up in the Public Safety Committee. The railroad parking officers monitor the railroad station generally at the peak hours when the commuters are coming and going, and then other parking areas in the center, and then off times they will travel out to Short Beach to check those passes out there.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Adjourned.
That's a record.